folks. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the Trinity Tims. We should have been with you last night, but circumstances out with my control, etc., etc. So we've got some. I'll introduce you first of all before the breaking news or the broken news. So I'm joined as ever by Eric on one side of me and James on the other. By breaking news tonight, the SFA have laughed off Celtic's appeal against the Austin Trusty red card. And the most interesting part from the Celtic statement, the feeble acceptance. I'm just going to click and try multitasking here to get it right. We await the written judgment that will be ensuring further discussions with the SFA on the matter as we seek to understand the rationale of this and other decisions. So it's a bit same old. I'm sure we've all read those statements before. I don't think there's been a Celtic complaint under the leadership of Michael Nicholson. There's a phrase that's hard to sum up. The leadership of Michael Nicholson. Peter Lawwell was famous for it. Funnily enough, in 2015, after the Josh Meekings Inverness Calithistles semi-final, Celtic went public and were writing to the SFA to seek clarification. Is my audio crap?
It's not the best, Joe, so maybe.
I'm trying to find out where my speakers are. Do you two want to discuss?
It seems to have come clear there now.
All right, I'll keep my head in this position then. So I don't know how I'll manage that. Stop laughing, put me off. No, in 2015, after the Josh Meekings handball, Celtic, then under CEO Michael Peter Lawwell, wrote to the SFA seeking clarification for why Stephen McLean missed a clear handball, assisted by assistant referee Alan Muir behind the goal. Of course, nothing was done. There wasn't any follow-up whatsoever. Using a toaster. Fair enough, mate. In December 2018, after an Alfredo Morelos masterclass at Ibrox, assisted ably by John Beaton, Celtic came out with another statement. They're looking for clarification, they're looking for accountability, all that sort of stuff. And again, Peter Lawwell was invited to Hampden, spoke with Ian Maxwell, was reminded of the 2012 five-way agreement, reminded of all the paperwork involved, and Celtic never said a word. And lo and behold, on Sunday at Tynecastle, McLean and Beaton teamed up to deny Celtic justice. They didn't apply the laws of the game. There was one big decision. That was a joint one between McLean and Beaton to send off Austin Trusty. But either side of that, there was the usual standard of refereeing that you see in Scottish football matches, where opponents get free kicks on demand. All you need to do is be anywhere close to a Celtic player, hit the deck, and you can be guaranteed the opponent's got a free kick. And with Hearts virtually unable to play normal football, it's set pieces. Celtic were poor for one of them, for Stuart Finley's equaliser, Hearts' first goal. But the possession of free kick that Hart got was ridiculous. So that isn't such a headline grabber as the Austin Trusty red card and the VAR decision. The bottom line is Celtic drew that match. They fell into third place. This world-class operation that we have, and it's not looking too bright. It could have been darker. It could have been dimmer had we lost at Hearts, but depends if your glass is half full, half empty. But the big question remains. For once, we've seen a little flicker of leadership under Michael Nicholson by appealing that red card. James, what comes next from Celtic? We all know what Beaton is. We all know what Stephen McLean is. This Saturday, we've got David Dickinson on the pitch. This Sunday against Falkirk, you get David Dickinson, who's cut from the same cloth as Beaton and McLean. And we've got Andrew Dallas on VAR. So Willie Collins, the honest broker behind all this nonsense, he appointed McLean and Beaton for Tynecastle, knowing exactly what they are and what they're going to produce. And we've got a repeat of it for this coming Sunday. So, James, where does Celtic go and how do they react to the appeal and the rejection of that appeal?
Celtic are just waiting for a disaster to strike. That's it. And then they will complain. And that's about all they'll do. At the weekend, 3 different crises came together in one afternoon. The squad does not permit any kind of mistakes at all. It's so pitifully poor that the margin for error is virtually nil. Now, when we were scudding teams by 3 or 4 goals, you could get away with refereeing decisions like that. But when you're not killing teams that when you're in a major battle, you need to keep all your players on the pitch. And decisions like that have an outsized impact. So we failed on the basis that we did not properly organise the transfer window to give the manager better options. We failed in respect of allowing the media to set an agenda before the game, and we refused to act on that. And it was the media that spent the week raising the issue that we hadn't had a standing half in the league for 80-something games, and they made sure that would be at the forefront of the officials' minds. And we failed in reforming the SFA, which is why a guy like Beaton and a guy like McLean are allowed to even referee these games in the first place. I mean, this has freed major strategic dealing to the same people. And you can blame the SFA all you want, but the SFA is not going to reform on its own. It's not going to change what it is and what it's been for the whole of our lives. The only thing that's going to change it is if we get serious and we start taking this seriously. And there's no sign whatsoever that we're going to do that. We're having the CEO, one of the most weak and inept men in the history of Scottish football. And we are where we are because of that.
Eric, what's your take on things? So, a comment come up there with Martin O'Neill mentioning the blue card. That's reasonable. It's a little double-edged, but it's also a bit hey. And we're Celtic, that's what we expect. But it's 2026. All 3 of us are, I think, in broad agreement. This isn't an SFA problem. This is a Celtic problem. Celtic enable it. The match officials for most Celtic games come from the Glasgow area. They're all part-time. They've all got working colleagues that will have a little giggle and a laugh with them, some banter, some WhatsApp chat. And in the case of David Dickinson, he's got an uncle in Australia who's got the same name as him, that absolutely detests Celtic and doesn't hide it in any way. So when does Celtic make a stand? We all know it should have happened yesterday, it should have happened last week, it should have happened last year. Stephen McLean's career should have been finished after the Inverness Cali Thistle match in 2015. 11 years on, he's still influencing Celtic matches. Ian Crocker of Sky Sports, he loves to give you every stat under the sun, every little bit of trivia. Strangely, he never mentions that Stephen McLean's brother, Brian McLean, was a former Ibrox youth team star. He got quite close to reaching the first team, but strangely, Crocs never mentions that. So, Eric, what on earth does Celtic do to start turning the clock back, turning the tide, and getting some fairness in Scottish football?
Well, I'll start by quoting the title of this podcast, Michael Nicholson, Get to Fuck, because that's the reality. Nothing's going to change while Michael Nicholson is in the building. So the only way, I hate living in the past, but we all know that if we had somebody in charge of the club like Fergus McCann, this just would not be happening. The SFA would have been taken to task a long time ago on this if somebody like Fergus was in the building. But as long as we have the saboteurs, because that's what they are, that currently reside in the building and in the boardroom, this isn't going to change. I would imagine the appeal is now being rejected. It will be left at that. They have given, us assurances that it'll be followed up. Follow up won't make any difference. It's not going to change the fact. The problem is not the SFA. The problem is not John Beaton. The problem isn't Stephen McLean. The problem isn't David Dickinson. It isn't any of them. The problem lies within our club. And until such time as that problem is eliminated from our club, we are still going to keep going around in circles in this situation. We are still going to keep seeing decisions like we saw last Sunday. And there is no defending that decision. It was not a red card. And no matter how many times you look at it, no matter how many permutations there are of it, or the way that people try to pull it apart, so many people pulled it apart yesterday and came to the conclusion, including former professional referees, that it was not a red card. So every man and his dog knows that it wasn't a red card except for the SFA for some reason. And I think we all know the reason that the SFA can't concede that it wasn't a red card is because it would open up an absolute shitstorm on John Beaton. And it would prove categorically that John Beaton is at it. And we know he's been at it all along. You don't have to be a genius to figure that out. You don't have to look at things through green-tinted specs to see that John Beaton is at it. He is an Ibrox supporter through and through. He saw an opportunity on Sunday to level the playing field for his side, because he knew that, everybody knew that a draw was no good for Hearts and it was no good for us. Look, it keeps Hearts 6 points ahead of us, but it allowed the Ibrox club to close the gap on them and push into second place. That worked perfectly. What happened in the 77th minute, where Austin Trusty was sent off, played exactly into the hands of the Ibrox side and what they needed. Now, obviously, it would have been better for them, I suppose, if we had been beaten, because it would have pushed us further back in the race and probably knocked us out of it completely. But we're still alive and kicking. We're still in this race. There is only 6 points in it. The upcoming fixtures are slightly more favourable to us than they are to the other two. They have some tough away fixtures.
Back end where we'll really see the favourite. We'll really be favourites. We've got them and Hearts.
They have some tough away fixtures coming up, and we have a little bit of an easier run in the next 4 fixtures. So, but it's like I wrote an article on. We all did articles on Beaton, clearly, and I wrote an article last night. But I started it by going into the game in Tynecastle 2 years ago, where Brendan Rodgers called out Beaton and was pulled up, and he had he got a 2-match ban, but 1 suspended. But we had to give him a King's Counsel to defend him in that situation. But the thing that stood out and what he said and what I kind of focused on was what he said is the game was refereed from outside the field of play. And once again, on Sunday, the game was refereed from outside the field of play. The rules state that if the on-field referee issues a yellow card, that's the final decision. It should not be interfered with by the VAR. The VAR should not be interfering if the on-field ref is given a yellow card. So, look, McLean was never going to argue with being called to the monitor, and with his persuasion, the kind of persuasion towards the Ibrox club that he has, it was a perfect opportunity for him to give a red as well. So, look, people will call us conspiracy theorists. They'll call us all the rest. This isn't a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy. And bottom line is, it's not John Beaton's fault. It's not Stephen McLean's fault. It isn't David Dickinson's fault. It isn't any Ibrox-facing referee's fault. They're allowed to get away with this shit because we don't challenge it. And it's that simple. And we saw what happened in 2023 when the Ibrox side challenged Willie Collum being in charge of games. Willie Collum was not in charge of a meaningful game involving the Ibrox side. He got a cup tie and he got a game towards the back end of that 23-24 season where it had no bearing on the league whatsoever. It wouldn't have made a difference. They kept him away from games at their behest. Celtic should grow a pair and stand up and say John Beaton shouldn't be next or near the games that we're involved in either. But that's not going to happen, and we know it.
Beaton's over the tip of the iceberg. As Joe says, there's McLean, there's Dickinson. We all know what these people have in common, and everyone knows what they have in common. And in any other league in Europe, they would be nowhere near our games. People can believe all they want about conspiracy theories and everything else. This is just a stonewall fact. In the rest of Europe, this would not be allowed. We're the only country that permits this. We're the country that allegedly has the fiercest derby in the whole of Europe. This is what they big up all the time. That this derby is unique, that the hatreds in it and the stakes in it are so high. And yet we allow officials from one side of that debate to referee these matches and referee games involving these clubs. I mean, those two just don't fit together. The whole thing is screwed up. It really is. We're in a unique situation here. And we've got a unique set of problems in Scotland because of it. And no one wants to touch it. It's incredible that we're sitting here. And I think all of us now are waiting to see what happens when Hearts are in the position that we're in. When Hearts, the closer this season goes to the end and the more likely it becomes that Hearts get over the line, the more you're going to see dramatic decisions go against them, which make no sense, except in the context of giving the Ibrox club their opportunity. And I am very much looking forward to seeing how Hearts handle it when those moments come, and they will come. They are inevitable. No one doubts it. We're just waiting on it. You set your watch to it.
A small point, John Beaton won't be refereeing many matches. He pulled up with a hammy, I think, at half-time in the Celtic-Falkirk match. So
John Beaton is more dangerous on VAR anyway.
He'll be restricted to VAR only.
He is more dangerous on VAR.
Yeah, well, the man that we haven't mentioned yet is honest Willie Collum. Willie Collum, we all know exactly his role in all of this. He owes his entire career to the Dallas family. Hugh Dallas looked at him, looked at his background and says, there we have it. Here's someone I can groom, I can bring through the ranks, and someone who is utterly, utterly compromised, as is all members of the Lanarkshire Referees Association. So Willie Collum knows all these officials personally. He knows their backgrounds, he knows their families, he knows all of that, and he came up with McLean and Beaton for Sunday, and this Sunday we've got Dickinson and Dallas. So, James, Eric touched on Willie Collum's disappearing act from Ibrox matches. That was the second time that he disappeared. There was a game at St Mirren where I think Morelos was sent. I think Morelos might be sent off at St Mirren or booked or whatever. There's something involving Morelos, and they came out and they mentioned Willie Collum in their statement. I think they get a £6,000 fine, and Willie Collum. That game was in December. The next game that Willie Collum got was dead rubber, last game of the season, away to Kilmarnock. So Willie Collum was banished. So Willie Collum knows the way this system works, and he operates it the same way. What sort of spotlight should be on honest Willie Collum, James?
Well, I mean, we can bang on about it all we want. We know the club's not going to do anything about it. Which brings us to another thing. I mean, even if the club does do something about it, right? Even if the club suddenly grew some balls and decided take this stuff seriously, we know that only certain types of speech are punished, and while other people can just say whatever they want. I mean, Derek McInnes at the weekend basically made a crack about how we never get red cards, how he was surprised because Celtic don't get red cards in Scotland. Well, what exactly does he mean by that? The SFA should be asking him to explain that statement, but they won't, of course. Any more than they asked Stephen Gerrard to explain his when he said that there was a conspiracy against his club on his first game. I mean, our club, right, understand. I think there are people at our club who understand how this works a bit more than we give them credit for, right? Even if we were so inclined, right, we wouldn't get away with it. Celtic managers get sanctioned all the time for this stuff, and other managers can just say whatever they like. It's the system is screwed. And the only way we're going to change it is by getting some allies together and making an honest effort to change it and bring it more into line with the way other leagues work. But this, again, is another strategic failing of ours. We're absolutely dreadful at alliance building. We are dreadful at making friends. We are dreadful at, building wee coalitions. We don't have a single bit of political sense whatsoever, which is strange considering the number of politicians we've had on the board and the fact that there's still one sitting on the board. But these people don't have a clue what they're doing. They genuinely don't have a clue. And they've left us wide open on so many fronts. If we'd have reformed refereeing when we had the chance, we wouldn't be faced with this right now. If we got grip of the media at the same time as we banned fan media, we wouldn't be in this situation right now because the media would have spent the last week banging on about how Celtic don't get red cards in Scotland. If we'd have changed the structures, the financial structures, we'd have had financial fair play in Scottish football, and there wouldn't be an Ibrox side in the top 5, let alone challenging for titles. And we've failed at every level. We have failed at every level. Our board of directors has not got a strategic thought in its head. They're just hopeless at this stuff. And they've left us exposed on multiple fronts and exposed to multiple risks that we didn't need to be exposed to. It's dreadful.
Eric, I think it's all down to laziness. And it's laziness in every decision, every department at Celtic. They just assume that the team... They assume that they get a strong enough manager to deliver results. As James said, when you're 3 or 4-0 up, these decisions don't have the same impact. When things are tight, when you no longer have that strong manager, when you've allowed Mark Lowell and Paul Tisdale to absolutely trash the squad, when you're down to half a dozen or less reliable players, and you're filling the squad up with players that wouldn't be out of sorts at Hibs and Aberdeen, clubs like that. So, just talking on the laziness, the Celtic board being complacent enough. Now and then, the decisions of referees will result the outcome will be results go against Celtic, but over the piece, generally, they can be above it and finish the season clear and pat themselves in the back. But do you feel it's... What's the problem with the Celtic board? One very obvious theory is... One very obvious theory is most of the Celtic board were on the Celtic board in July 2012. They know the paperwork. They know what Celtic conceded to allow their old firm business partners back into action. So, Eric,
title stripping for a start.
Sorry?
Title stripping for a start. It was all there in the resolution. It's all there in the side letter. It's all there in the private agreement side letter, which our chief executive of the time and our former chairman claims he's the only person in Scottish football who didn't read it. All right, Pierre.
Eric, where do you see this going? I mentioned the laziness. Our board are quite happy to fall in behind the old firm brand. Generally think they can get the better of it. This season, that might not be the case.
Right at this moment in time, I don't see it going anywhere. As long as we have these custodians in charge. That's, again, the reality of our situation. And you mentioned laziness. I think it's probably less a case of laziness and more a case of don't want to rock the boat. And that seems to be a big part of this board's modus operandi. They never want to rock the boat in any way, shape or form when it comes to the way they operate within the game in Scotland. They won't rock the boat when it comes to refereeing. They won't rock the boat when, in the past, they wouldn't rock the boat when it came to the behaviour of the Ibrox club. I mean, when we can go back to all of the incidents that happened in Ange Postecoglou's time, the glass on the field and the physio getting bottled and all that kind of stuff, and there was no interest in really calling that out to the level that it would have been if the shoe was on the other foot and it had happened to somebody, of an Ibrox persuasion. So I have lost all faith in anything meaningful or constructive happening at Celtic while the people that are in Celtic, are in charge of the club. It's impossible for anything to happen. These guys just don't have they can't even negotiate a transfer window, which is blatantly clear. We're on day 27 of this transfer window and we haven't spent a single fucking penny. Not one penny of 77 million quid sitting in the bank. And as we all know, we pay more to the revenue, to the to the customs, HM Customs and Revenue than we ever do for players of late. So it's starting to become really frustrating, because it's nothing's going to happen. Martin O'Neill has been left high and dry in this transfer window. There's mentions, of this guy Hawk or whatever his name is, and Maswinhize coming, but again, is it going to be a case of lastminute.com? I'm straying a bit off the point that you were making originally, but I'm just trying to tie in all the things that we have to concern ourselves with Michael Nicholson and his leadership or lack thereof. We can't. Celtic at the moment is going backwards as a club, and for however long more that this guy is in charge at Celtic, it is only going to continue going backwards. And a club that's we used to complain before that Celtic was in stasis and it wasn't going anywhere, but now it is going backwards. Unmanaged decline has caused Celtic to now start to regress. That's the best word for it. We're regressing as a club, and we're going to continue to regress, because what is happening now is the fan base has no faith in this guy. The unenforced sanctions that the fan base are going to put on the club now, if he is staying as the CEO, is that we're going to have boycotts. Following boycotts, we're going to have an impact on season ticket renewals. And even if 10,000 people decided they weren't renewing their tickets, that's nearly 6 million quid in season ticket sales that's down this money. And people will say, that for every person who decides they're not going to renew their season ticket, there'll be somebody waiting in the wings to jump in there and take it. But if we haven't won anything and we're still on the decline, who's going to want to start attending Celtic Park and paying 550, 600 quid for a season ticket? Who in the right mind is going to blow their money on something, on a product that isn't going to deliver them any satisfaction other than a whole pile of fucking pain? You know, so I'm at a loss as to where we go from here. I really am. And we can talk all we want about the things that have happened in the past to do with the IROC side and all the things that we should have done and all the reform that we should have pushed, all the title stripping that should have gone. It's all done now. Nothing's going to change. We can go on about all the things that should have happened, but as long as these guys are here, it's not going to happen. So we just have to push at getting these guys out, and no matter what it takes, no matter how much pain the club has to take, no matter how much pain the fan base has to take in order for this to happen, it just has to happen. This club cannot go forward. It cannot take one more step forward as long as these guys are in charge. And even if they do deliver another 2 or 3 players in the transfer window, it still doesn't change the fact that we don't have a manager. The interview process for a new manager should be going on now. They should be sounding out and making a short list of guys that they're interested in getting. And I see you smiling, Joe, because it's that hilarious that we know it's not going to happen. So it's, like I said, there will be books written about this era and this time. And they'll have nowhere to hide, and they will be remembered as the people who sabotaged this club.
Yeah.
And they'll never be forgiven.
I'm smiling and laughing because there is no chance of any competent manager anywhere on this planet, and I say competent because that rules out Wilfred Nancy and the like. No one is coming to Celtic to have Michael Nicholson negotiating your transfer deals and then sending a text message or an email to the Caribbean, waiting on a shareholder coming off the 18th green to give approval or to knock it back. So it's one of the sort of hidden stories of Celtic at this minute. We should be looking for a manager. We apparently have bought ourselves time by bringing in Martin O'Neill, but I suspect no work whatsoever is going on to bring in a new manager because the board know that no one competent is going to go anywhere near it. And Nancy was only there because of Paul Tisdale. I saw one of our zombie guests mentioning Nick Walsh. So Nick Walsh is apparently a Celtic man. That'll be Nick Walsh that's going to Beauclair Academy tomorrow. That's his place of work, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Nick Walsh is at Beauclair Academy, which is a partner school for the Murray Park Starlets. And not only is Nick Walsh there, he's joined by Grant Irvin. Grant Irvin is also a Scottish football referee. So this season, we've got 14 officials that have been in charge of Premiership matches, and 2 of them, their day job is at Beauclair Academy. How's that, eh? There's hundreds of schools across Scotland, and one school in Bearsden that partners up with the Ibrox Club. They've got 2 of their staff members that are on the rota for SPFL Premiership matches. But James, we touched on laziness, which brings us to the transfer market. So we all saw the pictures, the video clip of Michael Steamboats Nicholson out enjoying himself in Bologna last week. So we've had 1 week since we've had 8 days actually since our last podcast, and Michael Nicholson has managed to acquire 1 centre forward on loan for 4 months. So I think we're down to 7 days at a stretch left in the transfer window. Typically lazy. No money has been spent by Celtic. 2 loan deals brought in. Who knows the finances in them? But James, how ridiculous is this transfer window turning out? And is it making Martin O'Neill look foolish that he came along and apparently agreed to this? Where do you stand in lazy Nicholson and Martin O'Neill being in the firing line every 3 or 4 days, producing excuses and verbal gymnastics for the Celtic board?
The only person who would be surprised at any of this would be Martin O'Neill, because he spent so long praising this board that I don't know that he quite understood that Rodgers was not being... this was not Brendan being Brendan, right? I'm not sure that he quite grasped it. or that he quite believed that that Rodgers was actually had a legitimate concern, and he believes it now because he's seen it. He's been in the front line, he's seen it firsthand, and he knows that we are not going to get through this season in any meaningful way with the current squad that we have. And he's spent the last couple of weeks trying to convince people that his needs must be met if we're going to be successful, and he's been as unsuccessful as Rodgers has. I don't think anybody should be holding out any hope for big money being spent in the last 5 days, least of all Martin O'Neill. And the first thing that O'Neill has to do is he has to, at the end of this game and when at the end of this game in midweek, he has to sit down and level with supporters whether we went through or not, and tell them, as far as Europe is concerned, this is as far as we go, because we need to focus on the domestic game and we need to win this title, because that's the only thing that matters at this moment in time. You play with the hand you're dealt, not the one you wish you had. And I'm afraid that he is pretty much going to have to go with what he's got. I don't see there being anything really dramatic changing in terms of signings. This board has got a way of doing things that nothing is going to change. Nothing except an absolute disaster. Nothing except a disaster. So we are headed for the disaster. And David, don't give me your shite, all right? Do not give me your piss about the great Brendan. We all know Brendan Rodgers had faults. If you can't see by this time that Rodgers was right, that Rodgers was 100% right, you better take your head out whoever's ass you've got it stuffed up and have a look around. And as to the Sevconian point about Celtic supporting referees, they've missed everything that we've been writing and that we've been saying over the last couple of years, and they've missed everything that we've said again tonight on this podcast. I don't want Celtic supporting referees refereeing Celtic games any more than I want Ibrox supporting refs refereeing them. If we had any other association anywhere in Europe, they would not be allowed to. Our refs wouldn't be allowed to referee your games any more than yours would be allowed to referee yours. This is no difficult to understand, except for simpletons. Sorry about that.
No. Well said, James. We've got to take note that we do have some visitors in here from the Celtic Thick News Persuasion. Those that will buy any old nonsense that's put out by the Celtic board.
How anybody can question that Rodgers was right at this point, at this stage? How anybody can question that he was right when O'Neill was saying exactly the same things every other day just blows my mind, honestly. You have to have your head lodged somewhere not to understand this.
Yeah, the Celtic statement on the 6th of September, when he went through loads and loads of excuses for not doing things, and then Dermot Desmond's statement 20 minutes after Brendan Rodgers resigned, that tells you all you need to know. And for any of our Thick News visitors that believe in FSR, financial sustainability regulations, that's somehow holding back the Celtic board, wake up, lads. It's just, it's a little bit like amortization and other nonsense that you've been thrown at, and over the years, over the decades, explain the complete lack of ambition by the people that run Celtic. So these things are nonsense. Celtic have got plenty of money. They could spend it, but they don't trust many people. They don't know who's going to be manager next season. They might even not know who's going to be manager next month if things really go crazy. But Celtic have got the finances, and before UEFA get round to fining Celtic, before UEFA find Celtic guilty of breaching financial sustainability regulations, there will be dozens, if not hundreds, of clubs sanctioned in Europe. And what UEFA does is it shakes its finger at you and says, you've been very naughty, don't do it again. We're going to keep an eye on you for the next 2 seasons. And if you're really, really naughty, they'll restrict your squad from 25 players to 23 players. But Celtic already restrict their squad because you require 4 home-based players that have come through your own academy and 4 players that have come through academies of Scottish football clubs. So we do not have 8 competent players in that squad. Eric, do you see any hope?
The idea that we're facing any kind of financial sustainability regulation ceiling is the most preposterous contention that's been put in front of the Celtic fans in a long time. I don't care who has done this back of a fag packet sums on it. It is preposterous. The club across the city has posted losses year on year on year on year on year on year on year, and they still spend money that they don't have. The idea that they are no closer to the line than we are is just idiotic, to say the least. I don't believe it for a minute. I don't believe it for a minute. The best financial analysis of it, done by Swiss Rambo, who seems to know his stuff and is respected on this by fans of all clubs, says that we're closer to the 50, 60% mark than we are to the 70% mark, which is where you need to be. And I'll tell you, I look around Europe and I see a lot of clubs that are very obviously either skirting the line or over the line, and they don't care. And it's because, as you said, Joe, the consequences for stepping over that line are so meagre and minuscule and pathetic that it virtually makes a mockery of the whole set of regulations. No one cares about these rules. Clubs breach them all the time. So even if we were even within range of breaching them, I wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over it. Not based on what I've been reading recently. Not based on what I've seen recently from clubs who've been sanctioned for violating them. The penalties are so minuscule that it's hardly even worth talking about. The price for getting there as champions of Scotland this year is some £20 million higher than being in the Europa League. 20 million plus. UEFA's fines would have to exceed that to make it a bad risk. And they don't. And the club across the city knows that. And apparently we don't. We'll gamble with the 20 million for the sake of getting some phantom UEFA slap on the wrist, which isn't even a factor. I mean, honestly, anybody who believes that fantasy, anybody who's been sold that bill of goods needs to get their heads examined.
And let's not forget those pesky Belgian and German tax laws that only seem to apply to Celtic. Clubs across Europe all do business with players and clubs in Germany and Belgium, but for some reason, with Chris Mackay stealing £500,000 a year salary, plus all the perks, the jollies, going in a booze up with Nicholson to Bologna, etc., etc., Celtic seem to be the only club that can't work their way around Belgium. If only we had fallen foul of Belgium tax laws, we wouldn't have Michel Ange Balikwisha draining the wage bill at the minute. But Eric, where do you think Martin O'Neill sits in all of this? So it's more than 3 weeks since he came in as manager. Surely he spoke with Dermot Desmond. Surely he got some assurances. And as I said, 22 days after he came back to Celtic, he's been given one centre forward to work with. Surely that wasn't the deal that he agreed to.
No, and I think he's been taken for a ride by Dermot Desmond, because Martin O'Neill has come in and he has put his reputation on the line to rescue our club out of the situation that our club is in right now. And his reputation is a huge reputation at Celtic, okay? And I know Martin O'Neill is going to battle gamely to get this title for us. And before we go any further on this, I think I have to say that it will be, without doubt, if we do manage to pull this one off, it will be one of the sweetest because of the circumstances in which it would have happened. And I believe that Martin O'Neill knows that too. And more than anything else, because he's there till the end of the season, he wants to deliver that. But these guys are completely handicapping him. They're completely putting him in a position which is untenable for him. I read James's article earlier on there that we're not going to be, unless there are at least 2 to 3 more recruits in of quality level, we're not going to be in any position whatsoever to be able to battle on 2 fronts, let alone 3 fronts if we, because we'll have the Scottish Cup as well if we go deep into that. We're not going to be able to battle on those fronts. And correctly, James highlighted that Europe is the one that's going to have to be sacrificed, because those Thursday night games are going to sap the life out of us. They're going to put us in a position where we're completely fatigued going into the games on Sunday, which are now every game from here on out is a cup final, because we have no choice but to win them. And that's put us, look, we always know that in Scotland we have to win every game. That's just the way it is. Because of the size of the club that we are, there's no excuse for not winning games. But you could see, the guys battled gamely on Thursday last in Bologna. They battled gamely again against Hearts when they were under the cosh for the last 20 minutes or so. But you have to accept that there is only so much gas left in the tank. They can't keep doing this without having rotation going on in the squad. And we are in a position now where we cannot rotate, or we can't rotate to the level that Martin O'Neill would want to be comfortable to be able to challenge on three fronts. So what has he said to Dermot Desmond? I want to just deviate slightly and put one small thing into perspective about Dermot Desmond, right? I firmly believe that it's his spite and his son's spite and his basic attitude that he had during the COVID season that these, anti-establishment upstarts aren't going to get the better of us. So I think that's a big part of what we're seeing at the moment, and this guy's ego is going to be the downfall of Celtic if we allow it to be. And this is the guy who paid £55 million or euro for the most expensive property in Ireland on Shrewsbury Road. He paid €55 million for the most expensive property in Ireland on Shrewsbury Road. And he knocked that house and is building a new house as we speak on that property. Now, this guy has no problem going out and spending 55 million on a piece of land with a house on it. Yet he is restricting a football club the size of Celtic, with the amount of support and the worldwide support that this club has, from spending money in the most crucial transfer window that we have ever faced into in our history in the 21st century anyway. And this guy, what he's doing to Celtic at the moment has to be out of spite. I can't see any other reason. But what he's doing to Martin O'Neill is unfucking forgivable. Because Martin O'Neill does not deserve that. He does not deserve not to be supported in this window. And I'll reiterate it again. We have not spent a single fucking penny in this transfer window. That is absolutely shameful behaviour from a club of our size, our stature, and in the position that we are in right now. It is shameful behaviour. And fans that are out there that are still defending this need to get their fucking heads checked at this stage. They really, really do. And the likes of that prick Lawrence Donegan, he can go fucking jump. All he's trying to do is troll people. That's it. And if people take notice of it, they're worse. Because people like that, when it comes to the situation that Celtic is in right now, they're fucking brain dead. And those kind of comments are brain dead. They have no constructive bearing on anything that's going on at Celtic at the moment. So it's best left ignored with people like that.
It's complete denial of reality at this point.
Yeah, and that's the problem. These people can keep denying reality, but it's not going. This denial of reality is not going to change the situation.
There's the reality.
Yeah, that's the reality. We now sit in third place
in a do or die transfer window, and we have spent zero.
Yeah, and
that's the reality.
So, even if even if there are 2 to 3 players delivered towards the end of the window, they're probably going to be loan to buys. There's going to be no substantial amount of money spent. If we bring in Maswinhize, maybe they'll spend money on him. But we could conceivably come out of this transfer window having spent maybe 5 million at a push, and I would consider that a serious push if we spent 5 million quid. But I have no faith whatsoever in these guys delivering, simply because they are incapable of it. They have proven time and time and time again that they are incapable of delivering for this club when it comes to transfers.
We were here this time last year singing the same song and hearing the same basic complaint that we were singing it. You know what I mean? Give these people faith. You have a bit of faith in these people. We didn't expect to sell Kyogo, except we kind of did. And we kind of knew we were going to sell him. And we couldn't wait to sell him. But give them a chance. They'll get somebody in before the window shuts. Guess what? They never got somebody in before the window shut. We heard it all the way through the summer. They can't possibly no replace Kyogo. And they've still no replaced Kyogo. And Nicholas Kuhn, and they've still no replaced Nicholas Kuhn. So I generally don't know what this faith that people have is based on or built on.
Well, it's blind. It's blind faith. It's blind faith. I mean, that twat Lawrence Donegan saying, there's still 7 days left in the window. You're all bedwetters, because there's still 7 days left in the window.
There were only 14 days left. There's still 14 days left in the window. And 7 days will go back. There's still 21 days to go in the window. What are you worried about?
And I mean, the thing is, like Michael Ross has just said there, that Martin O'Neill should walk. Even if you know the funny thing about it is, if Martin O'Neill walked tomorrow, they would say, those fucking twats like Lawrence Donegan and the people of his ilk would say that Martin O'Neill is the guy who fucked Celtic over, not the people who decided to give him absolutely nothing in this transfer window.
Or it was critics like us that scared Martin away.
Yeah.
None supported by the guy.
It's just...
getting towards footballing matters and the actual players that we do have, it's fairly obvious since Martin O'Neill came back that there's maybe 12, 13, at a push, 14 players that he trusts. So we saw the team that he played against Auchinleck, and then he had his A team in against Hearts and Bologna. I suspect Kieran Tierney's out for at least a couple of games, and that's a result of not having enough backup. Tierney shouldn't have been playing as many games, and he played the full. He's playing the full match virtually every game, whereas at the start of the season, So there's various issues there. So down Kieran Tierney. One of my pet hates in football is managers and folk talking about 3 games in a week. It's 3 games. It's not. It's very, very, very rarely 3 games in a week. If you play Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, that's 3 games in 8 days. That's not 3 games in a week. But we do genuinely have 3 games in a week coming up. Utrecht on Thursday, Falkirk on Sunday, and Aberdeen on Wednesday. With 13, 14 players, we do not have the squad to cope with those 3 matches. There needs to be rotation. We don't have the players to do that. The subs that came on at Tynecastle said so much about where the club is. James, you mentioned about needing to forfeit Europe. I suspect that would be after, maybe fingers crossed, maybe fingers not crossed, that we beat Utrecht and reach the round of 16 playoff. Should we be thinking of playing this team that played against Auchinleck on Thursday night and keeping the A team fresh for Falkirk on Sunday and Aberdeen and Wednesday, and then we've got Dundee at home in a cup tie followed? Where do you see the rotation coming in, James? Surely Martin O'Neill can't keep squeezing because there's a game coming up on the 1st of March at Ibrox. We cannot go through February with 12, 13 players getting overused.
No chance. The thing that needs to happen there, we need to take this game seriously because it's in front of a home crowd that we're able to tickets and we need to win that game. But if there was a way to win it and then forfeit the place in the next round, I would take it right now because we do not need those 2 games, and I don't think we want those 2 games. And regardless of who the opposition is, and regardless of what the chance of going through is, we should field the Auchinleck team for both ties, home and away, for the next round. Even if there's a realistic chance of going through, because a realistic chance of what? Another 2 fixtures to pile on top of the fixture list already. That'll kill us. This team will be drawn like flies. There's no way for us to do this. I mean, it's you can argue all you want about the big adventure in Europe and all that, and you can argue all you want about having faith in O'Neill and everything else. But this is simple biology and physics. Those players cannot do it. You cannot ask them to do it. It's ludicrous to expect them to play another 4 games on top of the schedule they've already played. It's mad. The opposition don't have to worry about that. Hearts are currently sitting top of the league because they didn't have Europe this season. David did the easiest run I have ever seen a title challenging team have. They had no Europe and they went into both competitions, both cup competitions, hideously early. And they've had nothing to worry about for the whole season. The Ibrox club has just gone out of Europe. Not that you'd know it, or the euphoria out there right now. Absolute craving, surrender and collapse out there in terms of Europe. And the manager, the managerial genius, he's been in place for 5 of those fixtures and lost, I think, 4 of them. So maybe I'm not seeing the managerial genius, but they don't have Europe to worry about. But this team needs another 4 games and possibly another 2 on top of that. I don't even know. I would prefer us not to go through, to be honest. I don't want to see us lose on Thursday. In fact, I want to see us win on Thursday. I want to see us get through, but in terms of taking the next round seriously, well, you know how seriously the next round is taken when you see what the board does to prepare us for it. Because by the end of this week, we'll know what the board has done to prepare us for it. And O'Neill will know what he has to do. And if he's forced to play a cobbled together team of reserves for both of those games, I won't be surprised. Martin has to start thinking about what his legacy is going to look like above everything else. He can pursue the great European adventure and lose the league and be the guy who got us to a last 16 or a last 8. That's not what you're going to be remembered for, mate. You win the title and you can have your own trophy in the car park. Lose it, and this will just be another miserable episode and a miserable season. Finish third and your own legacy suffers. So Martin's got a choice to make, and he better make a good one. He better make it good. The reason I want us to win on Thursday and I want us to go through is that you just never know. You just never know. Maybe the man in Ireland will be ashamed and he will sanction the signing of 4 players on the final day that will make Martin's job a bit easier and give us some leeway and give Martin a chance to rotate the team. But if nothing happens, as we all expect, then the club has already written off the next round. And so the manager should have no problem doing the same thing.
Just as they did last year in the Champions League?
Yeah.
Eric, on Thursday night, Rio Hatate's suspended. Kieran Tierney will almost certainly be missing. That's 2 of the 13-14 that Martin O'Neill relies on. We all remember fondly the good old days under Ange Postecoglou, where he could take off a forward line in the 60th minute and he was throwing on Abada, Giakoumakis and Forrest, something like that. So we've got absolutely nothing like that for Thursday night. So what are your expectations for Thursday night and those so-called great European nights under the lights at Celtic Park, with the Green Brigade still absent and a disconnected Celtic fan base, apart from Lawrence Donegan and a few of the lads over at Celtic Thick News?
Well, I, like James, do want them to win the game. And I'm probably clutching at straws, like James, that will result in Dermot Desmond actually sanctioning some fucking spending. But, you know, an awful lot of people are, they sign off, something comments they say on Celtic, on my blogs, whatever they say, KTF, keep the faith. It's very hard to keep the faith at the moment. It is really, really hard, and you, like I said, you tend to clutch at straws and hope against hope that certain things will happen. Do I believe that a win on Thursday night will force the board's hand to buy more players? I don't really have any faith in that happening because they're incapable. It's down to their incompetence and their incapability of actually landing players. That's the problem, not the fact the will is probably there. They're just incapable, So I honestly, I don't know. I do want us to win, but I don't know where we can go after that, or whether it's going to be more of a hindrance than a help to us if we do win. I do believe, look, based on the performances that we've seen so far under Martin O'Neill in Europe, I do believe that we will get a result in that game. I mean, nobody would have given us a snowball's chance in hell to go to Bologna and to do what we did in Bologna, and we probably had a good chance of winning that game was Rio Hatate not sent off. So whatever Martin O'Neill, whatever ingredient he has, whatever capability he has of getting the guys, raising the guys for the games in Europe, he seems, other than the Midfield game, he seems to have been able to really get that extra bit out of the tank that isn't there You know,
Yeah.
he is pulling it out of thin air, you know, to get these extra performances out of the guys. And you got to give Martin O'Neill huge admiration for that. And he's endearing himself more and more to the support. But the problem is, like I said, you know, it is only going to be a matter of time before the board screw him over and we see him suffering as a result of the situation that we're in. So, I mean, I look at the game even on Saturday against Falkirk. Falkirk are the form team in the Scottish Premiership at the moment. They're really going well under John McGlynn. And then you have the refereeing, you know, the guys that we have in place to referee that game, and David Dickinson on the field. Anything can happen in that game with the refs are on a roll now. They're going to be all out. So anything can happen in that game. So it's, like I said, every game's a cup final. And look, my heart says I'd love to see Celtic progress in Europe. I'd love to see Martin O'Neill have come back to Celtic and taken them beyond, you know, a knockout stage like he did the last time we saw us get anywhere in Europe was against Villarreal in 2004. And I'd love to see him, you know, beat that or, you know, achieve better than that. And prove that he was the guy to always take us deep into Europe. But he's just ill-equipped to do it at this moment in time. And I just want to touch on one point that we haven't touched on in the podcast at all. Thomas Schwanchara. I mean, what do we make of his performance on Sunday? I think this guy, like, he showed flashes. He certainly has pace with the way that he provided the assist for the goal. And he showed that he's not afraid of the fight. He definitely got into good positions. He definitely pulled the Hearts defence around the place when he did get into positions. And that, you have to bear in mind, was his first game. And it was a really tough game to be your first game in, you know, as a player just coming into the club. And, you know, the fact that he provided an excellent assist, I think once this guy actually integrates into the squad, we're probably going to see a hell of a lot more from him. So, but yeah.
Martin was very clever about that.
Yeah.
Keeping the pressure off him and doing what he could do. And I thought we got the dividends for that. On that subject, Tom English's match report. He's one of those journalists who's so absolutely lazy and intellectually dishonest that it's kind of spectacular. He had, and you could tell when you were, I could tell reading it that he had started to write about how anonymous the guy was in the game, and then midway through the paragraph had to pivot because he made that run and set up the goal, and didn't even bother changing the first half of the paragraph. He just left it there, and then added the wee bit at the end. It was so spectacularly lazy and completely clueless. I mean, Tom, you just advertise what a prick you are. I mean, that's all you did, mate. It was absolutely idiotic what you did in that article.
Right, so we've got Utrecht on Thursday night with mixed emotions. Eric's touched on Falkirk. So Falkirk have beaten Hearts in penalties after extra time at Tynecastle in the Scottish Cup. They followed that up by beating Hibs 4-1. We've scored 4 goals twice at home to Falkirk this season, but Sunday looks as if it's going to be quite challenging. Any game after a European match is challenging. You're down to the bare bones of a squad. You're playing an informed team at home, and you've got David Dickinson and Andrew Dallas in the background. So I see a few podcasts that are saying things are alive and well, and Eric touched upon it that we've got a favourable run of fixtures, but Martin O'Neill's been pulling rabbits out the hat, but I'm not sure how much more he can do this for. And we might have some favourable fixtures, but you all know I've got a glass half empty, but Falkirk at home, Aberdeen away on Wednesday. I'm far from certain of taking 6 points from those matches. James, how do you view those two matches? Clearly, they're more important for Celtic than the Utrecht match. Any new player coming in, well, as we saw with their new striker on Sunday, if you join Celtic at this stage, the chances are you've not been playing at all in January. You're short of match fitness. you're short of training sessions. It's asking a hell of a lot for you to make any sort of impact. What degree of confidence do you have of taking 6 points from Falkirk and Aberdeen?
I think we'll take 6 points. I think we was good enough to continue squeezing something out of this team. But asking him to sustain that for 16 league games, God knows how many cup games and European games on top of it, is impossible. And that's that. We're not denigrating Martin O'Neill for saying it. It's impossible. It cannot be done with this squad. And we will find out whether or not the board wants to give him support or not. And we'll find out in the next few days. But with the present squad, it's impossible. I think he'll win the next 2 games. I just have no idea how he's going to be beyond that. If we're juggling European fixtures, Scottish Cup ties, and domestic league games, impossibility. No one could do it.
Eric, what's your take on Falkirk and Aberdeen?
Well, I don't think the Falkirk game is going to be as easy as people might think, even though it's at home. I think obviously Mr. Dallas and Mr. Dickinson will have some bearing on it. It'll be your usual typical fare of we probably hold 65 to 70% possession, although Falkirk tend to hold a bit more possession than other clubs that have visited us at Celtic Park in the past. But every time one of their players hits the deck, there'll be a free kick given, and you'll probably see the usual high free kick count against us and the low free kick count for Falkirk. It'll be a tight one again, just as it was against them at their ground recently. I reckon that we will possibly win it 2-0, 2-1. But I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park like it was, say, the first time that Martin O'Neill was in charge last November. I don't think we'll get a 4-0 win against them because they've come into their own in a big way since then. So I think it'll be, and they did give us a game a couple of, the week before last. So I don't think that we're going to, they'll give us a game again. It's that simple. With regards to Aberdeen, can you really draw anything from Aberdeen's result at the weekend against Livingston, bottom of the table? No. Are they starting to come a little better under Peter Levin? I don't know. I think we should have the beating of them. It just depends what squad is available to us on the day, how fit that squad is, But I think we could beat them again. I get the feeling anyway that all our games are going to be tight from here on out. We're not going to be romping wins at the moment, because you also have to take into account we're in a position where we have to win every game to be able to close the gap on Hearts, and we have to jump on any mistakes that either they or the Ibrox side make. So the pressure is now on us. We are in a pressure situation, and when players are in a pressure situation, they're a little bit more nervy. So it's not as fluid, it's not as easygoing. It's when you're in the ascendancy, it's a different story. You can go out and you can romp in games and win 4 and 5-0. But when you're under pressure to win and you have to push and push and push in every game, it's always going to be tight and it's always going to be edge of the seat stuff. So I feel that these games, all games are going to be close, unless by some miracle we actually land 3 or 4 players in the next 6 days, which I won't be holding my breath for that to happen.
You've touched on something, mate, that I didn't even think of. It's another major risk that we've opened ourselves up to. I forgot about Peter Levin. I forgot all about Peter. My favourite club is Rangers, and if I had the chance, I would shut Celtic down 11. His team will absolutely boot us off the park. If he can put a couple of players out to the end of the season, that will be good enough for him, and he won't care whether they get doing or not. As long as we find it that slight bit harder to win, pull the line. So it will be, as one of the guys just said there, it will be the complete opposite of the 2 performances against his favourite club, who he just rolled over for in the most pathetic fashion. It will be, and that will be some game up there. They will boot us all over the place. And as you probably gathered, we're not going to get much protection from the SFA or even our own board.
Yeah, and I will make one other quick point. Based on the way Hearts came out against us, I feel, we still, despite the position we're in, I feel we still have the best squad in Scotland at the moment. We have the best players. We have the best squad. We are going to have certain factors against us, but I genuinely believe that when the Ibrox side goes to Tynecastle, they're going to get a fucking pasting. I reckon. I reckon Hearts will give them a pasting.
Yeah, that's after the split. There's tons and tons of football before after the split. Hearts at Ibrox, I think February the 15th. So that's far more relevant than what might happen post the split. So that's almost all from us this week. As most folk probably realise, next Monday is transfer deadline day. So that's when Celtic spring into action. It's the moment Michael Nicholson's been waiting for to show us his dynamic brand of leadership. So we'll be back. Eric might not be with us next Monday, might be somewhere warm and sunny.
But Boycey will be in my place.
All right, I was going to keep that back. We've got a special guest called Boycey. He'll be with us for more fun and hilarity on transfer deadline day. You don't need to wear a yellow tie to join us next week. That's only for clowns like Jim White, who's got no personality or ability. But we'll be back with more misery, pain, anguish, and frustrations next week. But James is a man of words. I'll let James sign off. What's your expectations, James, before we reconvene next Monday for a transfer deadline day nightmare?
They're about as low as they've ever been. Listen, we know what needs to be done, and we know who is in charge of delivering it, and that will not happen. There is a reason that we gave the podcast the name Michael Nicholson GTF. The collective issued a statement on him yesterday, which was outstanding and covered every single detail that makes this guy unsuitable to be the CEO of Celtic. But I put up a piece at 7:30 where I highlighted a few of my own highlights. As I said, Michael Nicholson either was part of the board that decided to brief against the Celtic manager while the Celtic manager was still in the job, or he did nothing to support the Celtic manager when that happened. Either way, just pack your bags and fuck off. Michael Nicholson either knew that Police Scotland had been gave the details of our fans by someone in the club and allowed that to happen, or he failed to support the fans after it had happened. And either way, pack your bags and get the fuck. Michael Nicholson has never given a public statement in his time in charge of Celtic. He has never sat in front of the media and said a single word, neither to defend the club, to explain what the club is doing. He's never submitted, he's never put himself forward to be questioned on his role or on whatever plan it is. And so either he has a plan that is so unthinkably bad that no one would support it, or he doesn't have a plan at all. Either way, pack your bags and get the fuck. It's time. The guy brings nothing. We're paying the guy £800,000, and I don't know what we're getting for it. And no one knows what we're getting for it. No one knows. I can list all of his faults all day long, and the collective can list all his faults all day long. If somebody out there knows just one reason why Michael Nicholson deserves $800,000 a year, bring it on. Let's hear it. I'm all for it. Right. But if you can't think of one, then Michael, pack your bags and get the fuck.
I'm going to steal the last word here because there's one Michael Nicholson detail that's been missed out here. On December the 14th, Celtic lost the League Cup final to St Mirren. On December the 17th or 18th, Michael Nicholson gave one of his very rare interviews to Celtic TV. He was explaining how much he's backing Wilfred Nancy in the transfer window, not just in January, but in the summer as well. But during that interview, Michael Nicholson claimed that 3 Celtic employees were assaulted inside Celtic Park on the evening of the League Cup final, December the 14th. Strangely, we've had absolutely no news, no detail on that since. So if anyone's got any mobile phone video coverage of those assaults, please share it. Help Michael find the assailants. There's no place for folk assaulting anyone. Certainly no place for assaulting Celtic staff members while they're at their place of work. So, Michael, could maybe give us an update on that. Let us know if you've nailed down who's involved in that, or if you've got any evidence to share it. sure the Celtic support would be happy to nail down whoever was involved in that. Or, of course, it could have been complete fantasy made up by Michael Nicholson to paint the Celtic supporters in a bad light. So we'll leave it at that. Please give us a thumbs up, share, like, come back and put a comment. Oh, Eric's got something to say. You can have the final. James, the last word. Have the last word. Eric, you can have the final last word.
No, all I want to do is just welcome our Facebook viewers, because we went live on Facebook this evening. This is our first show on Facebook, so just welcome to all the people who joined us from Facebook. And we had 511 on the live show at peak, so obviously there's a few extra in for tonight, and that obviously has worked out for us. So keep it coming, guys. Thank you for all the support. And if you like what we do, like and subscribe, and we will see you all next week. In the meantime, let's hope and pray that we land some players that are going to help our squad survive the rest of the season. I won't hold my breath.